Last day, children, we had been studying about the structure of the arteries, veins and the capillaries. Today we'll be continuing with the chapter and concluding it. So let us look into the differences between arteries and veins. The arteries carry pure oxygenated blood with the exception of the pulmonary arteries. The veins carry deoxygenated blood with the exception of the pulmonary veins. The arteries have thick, highly muscular walls, and because of that, the blood flows through it under great pressure. The walls are also elastic. The veins are having thin, collapsible walls. The walls are non-elastic and the blood thus flows through it under low pressure. The arteries are deep-seated. Where they become superficial, there we can use it to feel the pulse. The veins are superficial, peripherally located. The arteries have a bright red color, whereas the veins have a dull red color. The blood flowing through it is dull red. Direction of the blood flow in the arteries is always from the heart to the different parts of the body. The veins are carrying the blood from the different parts of the body towards the heart. Oxygen level of the blood in the arteries is quite high because it is getting enriched by the oxygen from the lungs, whereas the veins are carrying low oxygen content because they have delivered their oxygen quantity to the tissues and are coming back to the heart for replenishment. Here we have the arteries, the veins and the capillaries shown. So in both cases, what is number one? Number one is the tunica intima or interna. Number two is the muscular layer. Number three is tunica externa or the fibrous connective tissue wall. Tunica interna can also be called as the endothelium. Number four here in the veins is valves. The valves are present in the veins to prevent the backflow of the blood. Number 5 represents the capillary network, and the capillaries are having only the endothelium lining within them. Now these blood vessels are forming a circulatory route. The common route that we find is from the heart to the arteries, through the arterioles to the capillaries, and then back again through the venules, the veins and back again to the heart. So this is the most common route that is found. Now this route is again taking place through two circulations which we have already discussed, that is the systemic circulation and the pulmonary circulation. Now apart from that, there is another circulation involved, which is the portal circulation. In a portal circulation, the blood flows through two consecutive capillary networks before they return to the heart. That means the blood vessel will begin in capillaries and then again end in capillaries. Such kind of a portal system is found in the hypothalamus pituitary system, it is found in the renal system, and it is also found between the intestines and the liver. In the hepatic portal system, the tributaries from the portions of the stomach, the pancreas and the large intestine, along with the small intestine, all these are coming out in the form of capillaries. Tributaries meaning the capillaries. They are coming out through the veins and then they are meeting here as the hepatic portal vein. And then they are entering into the liver, where they are branching into the capillaries. Also entering the liver is the hepatic artery. So there are two blood vessels which are entering the liver. One is the hepatic artery and the other is the hepatic portal vein. And there is only one blood vessel which is leaving the liver, that is the hepatic veins. Hepatic artery is shown in red because it is carrying oxygenated blood, whereas the hepatic portal vein is carrying deoxygenated blood. So also the hepatic veins. So this is the hepatic portal system. So the food that is absorbed by the stomach and the intestines is first brought to the liver, and there in the liver it is metabolized to form glycogen, which may be stored in the liver or in the muscles, and it may also be used up for the purpose of respiration. This diagram is giving us an overall view of the circulation that is taking place through the human system. Note the blood vessel which is emerging from the heart, that is the aorta. This aorta is branching upwards, moving to the head and the arms, and it is moving downwards as the dorsal aorta. Then it is branching as the hepatic artery to enter the liver. It is also branching into the stomach and intestines, branching into the kidneys as the renal artery. A few blood vessels are also moving to the lower parts of the body and the legs. Now the blood vessels which are emerging from the organs, you can see that they are shown in blue because they have delivered the oxygen to the organs. So out of the kidneys is the renal vein. Out of the stomach and the intestines is the hepatic portal vein, but it does not enter directly into the main vein. Rather, it moves into the liver carrying the nutrients for further metabolism. From the liver emerges the hepatic vein, and all these veins will unite the vena cava and the superior vena cava. They come in and they will enter into the heart. So which chamber of the heart will they enter? They will be entering the right atrium. From the right atrium, the blood will be moving into the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, it will move out as the pulmonary artery into the lungs, and from the lungs, being replenished with oxygen, it will enter the left atrium, and then it will move into the left ventricle. Now we take up another system, that is the lymph and the tissue fluid. The lymph is colorless fluid. It is the extracellular fluid that is circulating through the tissue spaces into the blood vascular system. It is consisting of the lymph capillaries, the lymph nodes, and the lymph vessels. So it is forming a parallel transporting system along with the blood. Whenever the blood vessels are unable to reach the tissues or collect the nutrients and the excretory substances from the tissues, the lymph serves the purpose. The lymph is not having RBCs in them, and the protein content and the minerals are also less in concentration. So if we look at the lymphatic circulation, this is how it looks. We can see that the main circulation is with the blood and its vessels. The blood directly does not reach the tissues. It diffuses into the spaces around the tissues, forming the tissue fluid, and from there the nutrients and the oxygen are delivered to the tissues. Then the carbon dioxide and the excretory substances diffuse out of the cells. If they are able to enter the capillaries, then they go back into the blood circulatory system. If not, then they are forming the lymph and they are collected in the lymphatic capillaries, from where they are moving into the lymph nodes, the lymph vessels, and ultimately they are again entering into the main blood circulatory system through the subclavian arteries of the body. So, the lymph functions as the middleman between the blood and the tissues. It transports digested fat-soluble vitamins through lacteals. It also filters and disposes of bacteria and other foreign particles. It stores immunologically competent cells, that is the lymphocytes, within its nodes. The largest lymphatic gland is the spleen, which we will also be discussing. The lymph also carries absorbed fat and lipids from the small intestine to the blood in the form of droplets called chylomicrons. So let us look into the differences between the blood and the lymph. The blood is made up of plasma, the corpuscles, and the platelets. The lymph, on the other hand, is consisting of plasma and leukocytes. Under the leukocytes, the lymphocytes are in abundance. The color of the blood is red due to the presence of hemoglobin, and because hemoglobin is absent in lymph, it is colorless. Blood has more quantities of proteins, calcium and phosphorus in it, whereas the lymph is having fewer content of proteins, calcium and phosphorus. On the other hand, the glucose concentration is less in blood but more in lymph. The amount of carbon dioxide and metabolic waste is lesser than that in lymph. And the blood acts as a vehicle by carrying materials towards and away from the tissues, whereas the lymph acts as the middleman because whatever cannot be emptied into the blood directly, it collects it and then delivers into the blood circulatory system. The tissue fluid, as I have already mentioned, is a watery fluid that is present around the cells. It is helping in the exchange of materials between the blood and the cells. Another term for tissue fluid is interstitial fluid. So, what substances are moving from the blood to the tissues? Oxygen, glucose, amino acids, fatty acids and salts. And what is moving away from the tissues? Carbon dioxide and waste products. So, if we are to look at the similarities and the dissimilarities, both blood, tissue fluid and lymph are watery in nature and they are helping in the transport of gases, nutrients and waste products. Looking into the differences, we find that location-wise blood flows through the blood vessels, the tissue fluid is surrounding the intercellular spaces and the lymph is located within the lymphatic vessels. Depending on their constituents, the protein content is more or highest in blood, next is in lymph and least in tissue fluid. Both blood and tissue fluid are having more of oxygen in comparison to the lymph. Regarding the cells present, the blood is having all the three types of corpuscles, that is erythrocytes, leukocytes and the platelets. In the interstitial fluids and in the lymph, only the leukocytes are present. Just look here how the exchange is taking place. The blood is moving in through the arterioles. So this blood which is moving in is oxygenated. Then it is branching as the capillaries, and through the arrows you can see it is moving into the tissue spaces which is having nutrients such as oxygen, glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins and ions, which through the tissue fluid will be moving into the cells. Cell will be utilizing them and the waste products or the metabolites in the form of carbon dioxide, excretory substances, excess ions will be eliminated. Now, if the capillaries are able to take them back, so some tissue fluid passes back into the capillaries. But if they are unable to enter into the capillaries, then they will be moving into the lymph capillaries and then entering into the lymphatic system. The contents that had been emptied into the capillaries then will again unite as the venule and it will carry the blood away as deoxygenated blood. So this is the total circulation which is taking place in the body tissues. Now we come to an understanding of the spleen, which is the largest lymphatic organ in our body. It is located in the upper far left part of the abdomen to the left of the stomach. So on the side where the stomach is located. The spleen varies in size but is commonly fist shaped and about 4 inches long. It is protected by the rib cage. It has several roles in our body. It is acting as a filter for blood as part of the immune system. All red blood cells are recycled in the spleen. Hence, it is known as the blood reservoir because the platelets and white blood cells are also stored here. Also, we find that it produces lymphocytes. And because it produces lymphocytes, it helps fight certain kinds of bacteria that cause pneumonia and meningitis. In the embryo, the spleen is also capable of producing RBCs. So that is all about the chapter. Hope this was helpful to you. Thank you.